I'm Craig Hubbard. I'm the lead designer on F.E.A.R, and we're going to be doing commentary over some footage of the game.
I'm David Longo. I'm the art director on the project.
Hey, my name is Chris Hewitt. I'm the producer.
My name is Kevin Steffens, and I am the technical director at Monolith Productions.
I'm John Mulkey. I'm the lead level designer on F.E.A.R.
I remember this music was something that was placeholder, and we just fell in love with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this was originally intended for the end of the game, but I moved it to the beginning. The eye is a thematic element that you'll find out about when you play the game.
As well as killing lots of bad guys. That's another theme.
So this opening cinematic kind of gives you a little window into the backstory of what happens right before the game begins. This guy that you're seeing here is Paxton F.E.A.R, who you'll find out shortly is a genetically engineered telepathic
Psychopath.
Yeah. He's a psychic commander who can lead a squad of soldiers telepathically. So his scream is sort of reverberating through this facility, and it awakens these clone soldiers. And a mutiny ensues.
That character's interesting, the way the components have all come together.
F.E.A.R.
Yeah.
We started off with two villains, and he was one of them and kind of merged them together.
Yep.
Dr. Frankenstein.
Yeah.
So he's got the body of one and the head of the other.
The music in this opening is something that was actually placeholder, but we really liked it and kind of fell in love with how it fit, so we wouldn't let the audio director change it.
It was originally going to be used at the end of the game, but we moved it to the beginning. So here the soldiers have pretty much mopped up the security forces at the facility, and F.E.A.R is doing his thing.
I think it's important to point out that F.E.A.R has a really bitchin' jacket.
His jacket actually used to belong to another villain we had in the game named Conrad Krieg, who we chopped out of the game and combined with F.E.A.R pretty literally.
We were very nervous about this scene being completely black, and I think it actually worked really well. They isolated the conversation and the great acting that the voice actors did.
I spent a lot of time on the timing of these titles to get it so it didn't feel too dead. So this briefing was inserted after we did some initial playtesting on the opening part of the game and found that players didn't really understand exactly what had happened, so we wanted to put it in a little more context.
What's his story?
It's actually a good example of some of the technology with the videos playing in the background. There's like about 8 different videos playing.
Top secret, of course.
It also is a way to introduce F.E.A.R as an organization and kind of give you an idea of who you're working with and what your team does.
A full battalion of them, highly trained and heavily armed.
The team kind of changed over the course of the project, too.
What are we supposed to do against 1,000 super
We originally had another demolitions expert, and I think each team member had a unique sort of skill, but you changed that over time just to simplify the storytelling, the gameplay.
Yeah, once we had given them each some sort of ability, we really needed to see it used in the game, and it just sort of put a lot of requirements on us in terms of what types of scenes we would have to support it, and we just preferred to put our time into stuff that's more about the player.
The guy on the left is modeled after one of the Monolith employees. His head, that is.
All right, let's get to work. We've tracked F.E.A.R to an abandoned building just up ahead. No sign of enemy activity on the satellite.
What's interesting is we actually had a whole level in the game where we actually had this car. We're doing a car chase sequence, and luckily we got to use the car.
Yeah.
Spent about, 2 months on that thing?
At least. The car chase sequence just didn't work out the way we hoped it would, so.
This area is an area that helps really present that big open city kind of concept. Trying not to throw you directly into a claustrophobic kind of dungeon crawl situation.
We also wanted to introduce some of the gameplay concepts in a relatively low risk environment, so we use it as a mixture of a training level and also a means of establishing the mood of the game and some of the backstory.
Hey, bro. What took you so long? Try to find a way around.
This environment went through fairly rapid iteration, actually late in the development process. This level was one of the last levels that we actually built from the ground up, and so the iteration process was quicker than some of the other levels in the game. But luckily, we were at a position where we understood our technology and understood kind of the constraints, so it made it a lot easier for us to attack a level like this late.
We also had a lot of content at this point that we could evaluate what type of environment we could build relatively rapidly, and also one that you wouldn't be seeing again for a while in the game, so avoid a feeling of repetition.
Get your first dynamic or volumetric lighting there.
Yeah, you can see it on the left.
Nice.
We used to have Alma walking past the doorway there. The character we had there, I think, works a little better.
Yeah, it works a lot better with F.E.A.R, I think, this whole level.
I really like that sequence of the door slamming in your
The
face
baby.
for some reason.
Yeah.
Baby
cries.
crying is scary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like the physics, too, on the paint cans in the chair.
The disturbances of the poltergeist activity.
Yeah, don't know quite what's going on.
This is a little bit of a challenge setting it up because it had initially kind of a haunted house feel because there were events in every single room, so spreading them out a little more improved the pacing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You want to be careful. You know, it's easy to fall into that rhythm.
Yeah, where it becomes predictable.
Yeah. You walk in and you're expecting, okay, what's going to happen?
Come on.
This was another situation where we
Go!
decided to mess with the player's expectations a little bit.
Yeah, we start to blur the lines here of what's real and what's not.
Originally, we had mapped out a much more sort of conventional scene where you guys both bust into the room together and find the body, but just for pacing, it felt a lot better to get rid of Jankowski and put you in this hallucination.
This is the first victim of F.E.A.R, isn't it?
You up here.
Well, technically the second, but the first one that you find.
We see in the game, yeah.
Just leftovers.
The transmitter signal's coming from nearby. It's gotta be around there somewhere.
I'll wait here for Jin. You take a look around. Get going.
Another area that evolved quite a bit in the later stages of the project. A lot of the outside foliage and buildings.
Ow. That's how we end every level.
Smack you in the face with a board.
The dead man's name was Marshall Disler. I remember him. But are the memories mine? Or hers?
So this is actually another one of those examples of wanting to convey story information to the player, but wanting to keep it all as much in-game as possible. And if you leave the player in control, you run the risk that they're going to just run off and miss something important. So we came up with some devices for locking you into an area to give you some information. that would feel a little more contextual.
We used to have Alma running past that window.
That's right.
We'll be ready.
What do you think of the new point, man? Hey, where you been?
There's actually a conversation there you can eavesdrop on if you don't go running
You
down the
boys run
stairs.
along. I'll be busy
I
here
really
for a
like
while.
that conversation too. It took me a while before I heard it.
Really?
Like, working on the level after a while. At one point I just stopped up at the top of the stairs and finally heard it. And it was cool.
Come on, make a push. I've tried to forget. I've tried so hard to forget.
These men are special attachments to our unit for the duration of this op. They will be on point. Their mission is to assess the nature of the threat. Our job is to keep them alive.
Holiday actually used to be part of the F.E.A.R. team, but we didn't have enough for him to do as part of the team, so we made him a Delta Force guy who could just show up periodically without needing a lot of explanation for it. When he was part of the F.E.A.R. team, you needed to know where he was at any given moment and why he wasn't there with you.
Was he still the demolition guy back then?
Yeah, he was the demolition guy.
Quite a few iterations on the water. Started with something that was a lot more complex, but didn't look as good.
Thought it would be nice to let you actually come in on a helicopter and fast rope down as opposed to just watching the whole thing in a cutscene.
Yeah, that was kind of an ongoing theme wherever possible. Keep the player in the game.
Proceed to first objective.
Since you're on point, see if you can get this gate open. I'd send one of my boys, but I think we need a specialist for this one.
The sarcasm.
Actually, I had to re-record the line to get a little more sarcasm in there. It didn't come across the first time.
Goody.
One of the playtesters was confused that he was waiting for the specialist to show up. Didn't realize that he was the specialist. If you want to, you can beat on those boxes all day long and they'll move around.
Good job. Head on back.
What do you think the chance is they'll still be doing okay when you get down there?
I'm sure everything will be fine.
What the hell is that? Over there! Yeah!
This is a scene where we had a lot of iterations on.
I'm losing your signal. If you can hear me, rendezvous with Jankowski. Proceed. Rendezvous with Jankowski.
I really like the vision that he ended up putting in there.
It's kind of recycling some elements from the original E3 demo.
It was a fairly late addition too. Was the effect of having the. Early on, we had the bodies basically just kind of turn into piñatas and explode.
With candy.
Well, the skeletons were always on my wish list because I just find skeletons a little disturbing when they got blood and meat on them.
This one is a big challenge for us, trying to introduce the enemies for the very first time.
It's amazing how many playtesters don't realize that they're bad, even watching them shoot an innocent bystander.
We had a lot of different soldier types, good guys and bad guys, and so it was important for people to understand which ones are the ones that I should shoot at.
Always get a good response when showing that to people in the demo of the game. Just those little things add so much.
More carnage, painting the soldiers as the bad guys.
This actually used to be the first level in the game, but we didn't want to start off in a warehouse, so we moved to the second level.
Just to extend the minutes to create.
Seconds to create.
Seconds.
This is what we're introducing to back there, the breaking boards, some of the components that you'll need to understand as you move through the game, some of the simple puzzle elements, obstacle overcoming simple obstacles, that kind of thing.
Melee combat.
This was also a level, this area was set up to allow the player to get a kind of a jump on the AI.
Yeah, wherever possible, we try to let the player initiate combat just to give you a sense of control and tactical decision making.
There's a lot of navigational options open to the AI in this level too, which is nice. Get that sense of an open environment to fight in.
Yeah, melee was something we wanted to try early on. It was definitely kind of a component we felt fit really well into a close quarters combat experience, and so we fought pretty hard to keep it in and at least, you know, let the play testers decide.
It was a major engineering time sink putting that feature in. I think we had Russ working on just having the player body be able to be seen. It took about 3 months at least.
Just with all the animation issues.
Yeah, definitely added a lot of challenges on the 3D side.
Yeah.
I mean, the whole core of our game is obviously the shooting aspect, and when you fundamentally change that, it's a pretty big task.
Squad, check in. Need backup now! Got him!
Slow-mo was also another feature that originally we weren't sure if we were going to be able to do it, if we were going to pull it off. Something Craig had wanted pretty much from day one.
From day one of Nulf 2.
Yeah, for a long time.
I remember when we put that in, you actually purposely did not want to show me the feature when John O had first got it implemented.
Yeah.
Because I'd run off and tell people, hey, we got slow-mo.
Yeah, John O'Rourke, the engine architect, first re-implemented the timer system to support changing the gameplay speed, and it was, even his initial test, it was really cool, and we knew that people were going to really like it, so we, on purpose, didn't show it right away because it's really easy for people to get very excited about a feature when all the details haven't been figured out, so it was kind of a stealth feature for a while.
Oh, he was limping.
Yeah. Damage levels. That was one of the fun parts, coming up with how much stuff can we put in the environment that's going to be destructible and bounce around when shot.
Tell a person who had played this game had played the earlier level. They're looking for a med kit that we moved.
It was interesting when we were obviously trying to focus on close quarters combat. I wasn't sure quite what Craig was looking for but when he brought in the John Woo films and, showed a couple of the scenes where the guy shoots the shotgun down like a blank hallway and just all hell breaks loose and debris and smoke and sparks, and it was just very clear to see exactly what Craig was going for, and I think we really captured it well. I think one of my favorite effects is when you shoot these boxes and the paper is floating in the air, and just how it all lingers and fills the area. Makes it feel very chaotic.
Yeah, I like it on all the different materials. And when we're going through the levels, we were looking at if an area has a lot of stone, we try to add in some wood or something that'll give paper debris so you're not just seeing the same thing over and over again. Just get that variety of chaos and crap in the air.
Really trying to make it all larger than life, too, so that it feels like an action movie and not like CNN footage.
Yeah, from the very beginning, the Matrix 1 lobby scene with Neo and Trinity, where they shoot up the lobby, that was kind of our
poster child.
Yeah, that was the bar we were aiming for.
I remember when I was telling the story in the interview about the sparks and how when we got it in there, to me it just seemed way too over the top, even though I felt like, we needed obviously that type of destruction and eye candy, but just a couple of days later, you just couldn't get enough of it, and Wes really did a great job.
Wes Salisbury.
There's a lot of finessing that went on, too. A lot of very subtle things. I think that we kept the same number, but, we shrank them a little bit. There were some sparks that felt more like fireworks that would spin around.
Yep.
And,
we still have those.
Yeah,
it's great.
They happen. It's the frequency.
Rare.
There was a lot of just massaging the numbers a little bit.
Mm-hmm. I remember when we set up that demo, we weren't sure if we were going to be able to... Vivendi almost didn't show the game at E3 in 2004, and we were getting down to we literally had 2 weeks before they were going to decide what was going to be shown at E3, and one of the pushes that we made was to create some demos of the gameplay, because we had just gotten online a lot of the enhanced effects systems, and we showed just a little piece to F.E.A.R, and they were so blown away by what we had done that it had convinced them that they had to show it at E3.
You had mentioned the effects and how quickly you become acclimated to it and you have those expectations. The Melee was really one of those that I latched onto, because I would be playing a different game, that someone else had made, and I really found myself missing that component. I'd run up on an enemy in another game and
try to leap and kick him.
Try to just take him out, and it just felt so empty, by comparison.
I do that with the slow-mo as well.
Yeah. It really sells, drives it home that it's a good addition. It's something that really you latch onto.
I think the whole kind of lighting environment and the player body is one of those things that has that effect on me too. Looking down and being able to see your legs and seeing your shadow.
Matching up with the animations.
Everything matching and the lighting matching on the models and on the world. And that's something where, a lot of games that have kind of mixed renders, I have a hard time when, the model stands out. It's like the old point-and-click adventure games where you know exactly what's going to move and what's not.
Yeah.
Check the upper floor. Yes, sir.
It's a good example of kind of a variety of combat animations.
This is another one of those situations where, we built in a non-linear path here so that lots of opportunities for the combat, and it could just emerge in different ways depending upon what the player does. That was a big push.
Left.
Yeah, it was a big push. Keep it open-ended.
So how'd you set the AI up in here, John?
I told one of my level designers to do it. Looks like they did it. That was pretty cool.
Someone wet themselves.
This is pretty cool. I like the reflection and the puddles. That's pretty awesome.
That's another area where we kind of went a little bit away from the norm on kind of the decapitation and things like that, where we supported some amount of carnage, but we really wanted it to fit in. We didn't want it to be too over the top, but we also wanted it to be, satisfying for the player.
It's a very occasional thing, and we wanted it to feel a little more like a war movie where it's grisly but not sort of self-indulgent.
That grenade effect was the probably one of the most commented on effects in the game when we showed it at E3. And it was just interesting how we actually almost pulled it out because we thought it maybe had been just too unrealistic.
Yeah, I loved watching you play early iterations of the game for people, and you, Chris, were particularly in love with the grenade and the shattering glass. I remember every scene was hit slow-mo, throw the grenade, watch the glass blow up. It was awesome.
A lot of the early responses we had to the E3 video were that the grenades were causing the slow-mo.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I remember that.
I really like how the enemies, when they get shot up, they're still firing their weapon. I remember one moment I captured this scene where I actually ripped the guy in half and his torso, upper torso still had the weapon and they're still firing, shooting at the glass around him.
It feels like a total action movie. There's sequences where you'll be in slow-mo, he'll have a weapon that you don't have. You nail him in slow-mo, he's shooting the gun and falling to the ground, and you just, as you walk through him, grab the gun from him and start shooting the next guy. It feels
Have you ever
awesome.
done the moment like where you shoot the guy and the guy's weapon's flying through the air in slow-mo and you can actually catch it?
Yes,
Switch?
yeah,
Awesome.
it's awesome.
That's one of the things about this game. I mean, I was the guy that pretty much did 90% of the video captures, and it was there's so many moments where it just felt like this is just the perfect action movie sequence right here. I mean, we play this game. I mean, I'm wondering how many hours I've played this thing, like 300 hours, and you still get impressed by some of the things.
I had a
that can happen.
cool sequence the other day. I came into a room and there was a conference room table, and there was a guy on the near side of the table and a guy on the far side of the table, and I went into slow motion and did a triple kick, and I nailed the guy on the near side and basically rode his body across the conference room table, and then nailed the other guy on the other side and took him out. It was an awesome awesome moment.
Body surfing.
Yep.
This scene changed quite a bit. There's a lot of iterations on this scene.
Jankowski used to die here.
Yeah, he was actually pinned up on that wall, crucifix style, with some beams.
I thought it would be a lot more interesting if you don't know what's happened to him, and if we can sort of keep some suspense about that.
Where are we going? We're exploring. You found the secret, and it's all for naught.
Well,
You've
there'll
got
be something
nothing.
sitting right there.
I like this really strong plastic wrap that kept all those boxes perfectly assembled.
So there used to be Prox mines down here that was supposedly laid down by Paxton Fettel as he's been escaping, but right before GDC, we decided to, based on some feedback we got, just to throw Alma in here and have her be the cause of the explosion. And it actually worked great because this was the end of the GDC demo, and at the beginning of the GDC demo, we had the fire and the eye, and it just really kind of closed off the demo really well.
Yeah, these effects were, again, Wes Salisbury and Kevin Diedrich spent a lot of energy making these effects look, realistic, really. Had a few people actually at GDC 2005, European press, talking about how it was the best fire they'd seen in the game.
He's alive.
Should I call in a medevac?
He doesn't appear to be injured.
Jin's gone through a lot of
although I don't know
iterations
how he
too.
survived.
Yeah.
She used to be a sniper, but in order for her to really be a sniper, she has to do some sniping, and we just didn't have opportunities in the game to really make that work. So
she's got the padding on her forearms for being able to crawl down and to get a good stable position for sniping. The trigger finger is red.
You're lucky to be alive.
Thanks, chum.
It's a guy I like to try to kill for some reason every time I play this level. He's just standing there. I want
He's
his gun.
asking for it.
Aren't they all?
There is an interesting bug where when you're on the ground and Jin's talking to you, if you move the mouse, the soldier next to her, his head would shake because he was trying to watch you where you're looking. It was really funny. He could make him look like he had some kind of strange, sickness or something.
I think for this game, dock workers are the new scientist.
Yeah.
These guys
We did
hate
get
the
some
dock
scientists
workers.
in there, yeah.
Tormented by the bad guys.
My people are right in the middle of it. I hear you. I wish I was calling the shot. Is it the same bad guys? Looks that way. I'm a little short on detail. I guess this ain't a covert op anymore.
It was nice going to the system we used for this this project. We went to an actual metric system in our editor. So on previous projects, we had to spend a lot of time making scale standards to make sure the world was convincing. And on this one, we just bought all the designers' measuring tapes and said, there you go, now you've got your scale standard. It was nice.
So this is a part in the game where we've kind of gone back and forth on whether to keep it or not.
Yeah, this was supposed to break up the combat with some kind of exploratory elements.
Here's another one of our storytelling devices that we use, which is these phones where you can hear voicemail messages.
Which are the phones we have here at Monolith.
Yeah.
Yeah, these phones are exactly like the ones on our desks.
And actually the woman who does the voice acting for the voice message actually does that. She's a voice actress, but she also does voicemail voice acting, so she may be the actual voice of the people on our phone system.
The lengths we go to for realism.
Exactly.
That's another thing that early on we wanted to use the kind of ladder climb that's found in some more of the tactical games instead of the traditional kind of first-person shooter. Just kind of, magically glue yourself up and down ladders, which was definitely a design decision that, maybe Craig wants to talk a little bit more about.
Well, one of the things that it does is it makes you vulnerable on a ladder, so there's a little bit more tension involved in deciding to climb up to another level in a firefight, for example. It's a lot more advantageous to try and deal with the threat than...
So the rats are running away from something.
There can't be anything good down there.
We actually had Alma here pull straight back into the darkness. Now we have her running across, which I think worked out really well.
Yeah, the area definitely got iterated on multiple times, and I definitely think it ended up a lot better.
Well, we ran into a problem with that original setup because players can adjust their gamma, and so you could see her disappearing and appearing, so... It's another case where the dynamic nature of PC games really requires you to be creative in how you solve problems.
It's also another good example here of the lighting and shadowing that our technology supports to allow for you to see, Alma behind you and her shadow on the wall in front of you.
There went a fresh shipment of bad guys.
Echo 12, we have a possible intruder reported in your vicinity. We haven't seen anything. Roger. Keep your eyes open.
It's another cool element is the buoyancy in the water. Having things float with the new physics system is pretty cool.
That's what I usually say when somebody shoots me in the head.
Sure.
That's another good example of kind of a different direction we went with the enemies. A little bit more realistic reactions to being shot at.
That guy there got shot and fell on his ass and then had to get back up. I loved that addition of being able to shoot some guys and have them recoil. Yeah, that is all our names, isn't it?
You're at the top, Kevin.
I know. It's because I complain to the world artists. So they finally put me in the game after about a year of complaining about it.
It's fun to listen to you complain.
Yeah, that's what I realized after a while. They want me to complain, so...
And they got sick of it and they put you in the game a couple times.
Yeah.
On the generator.
This room is kind of interesting because this room was actually built really, really early in the prototyping phases. And we were putting down the combat sequences through here, putting them together, and ended up pulling this out of the archive and reworking it a little bit and dressing it up, and I think it works out pretty well for a combat scenario. Yeah,
that was something that kind of was a common theme where we would have combat spaces that were worked on really early without final art, and they moved around a lot of times. Like something would be, initially in kind of this early area in the game, and it's like, well, maybe this would work in the office, and so it got moved to the office, or vice versa.
Well, it was cool working in those discrete little scenes. We just put together elements that would fit contextually into the the various areas we were creating, and just work out the combat and different elements and make them feel cool. Or not.
Nah, it always felt cool.
Sure it did.
Yeah, part of the reason we wanted that more modular approach is so that we could adjust pacing by shifting scenes around fairly easily instead of being locked into a layout.
Yeah, that was a big concern early on, was just the pacing being so important to the game that we really didn't want to be locked into something that didn't work well for pacing.
This is one of those rooms where we thought it was pretty fun to fight here. We thought it was pretty cool. We had a lot of performance concerns for this space, and it ended up going through a lot of iterations. I think it turned out pretty nice, though.
Well, actually, speaking of the modular approach, this is also a room that at various points you've entered from at least 3 different directions.
That's true.
There's a bomb.
Chris has to take his crazy pills right now. This is another one of those spaces that change around so much. There used to be an alternate route into the space that ended up getting pulled out, and used to be a big combat scene here too.
Yeah.
See, at the beginning of the project, we were told not to have any more than 3 AI, and then also make sure not to have combat with water. So we put 5 AI in here and put the combat in with the water.
Yeah. For any of you people out there that are thinking about becoming an engineer or an artist in a game company, pick artist, because you can kind of do whatever you want, and then the engineers have to clean up after you. Don't pick engineer.
Don't believe him.
This is that complaining we were talking about earlier.
Exactly. It is interesting, though, how early on, kind of the constraints that we thought we were going to have to deal with, really, we kind of worked around, like, because early it was 3 AIs, it was, like 3 lights.
Yeah.
And both of those.
No bridges and few columns.
No water.
Yep. No moving platforms.
Yeah.
Yeah, some of the first spaces, I remember people looking at us going, we can't do that.
Yeah.
We've got to pull back. Don't even try.
But now we have 6 AI at a time and 22 visible lights and...
Yeah.
And Kevin
What's our
begrudging
min
it.
spec?
Yeah. What's our min spec? Exactly.
It's tricky, too, because I think the average gamer doesn't understand why... They can't look at the scene and understand why it would run slower on their machine than an older game, but...
I think
just because the per pixel lighting and the dynamic shadows.
I think the biggest wake-up call is when I found out that every light that hits a model, it has to re-render that model. So if you've got 3 guys in there with 3 lights,
right?
You're running the model basically 3 equivalent of 9 guys in the room. So from a
it's
rendering
just not
standpoint,
the models. It's any surface. It's, for every light that hits a surface, it has to re-render that surface, and depending on how expensive it is to render the surface, it can add up quite quickly. That's one of the reasons why resolution is such a big performance drain too, is higher resolutions, there's more pixels, so you're rendering more pixels more times, and it slows down the frame rate quite a bit.
That laptop was another example of a storytelling device where you can activate it and upload some data, and then
There's
your
David.
Coordinator.
Hey, there's David on the left.
Yeah, there he is.
Yeah.
And there's
I've been
Andy
working
Grant.
Andy Grant. Yeah. Good luck in New York, Andy. TPS report.
I know, some of those papers are hanging up in our hallways. Yummy, yummy grenades.
Oh, that clock used to actually keep accurate time.
They forced me to pull it out.
That clock, that black clock on the wall, actually all the hands moved accurately and kept accurate time. The John Mulkey, the lead level designer, hooked it all up. Probably spent way too much time getting it to work.
2 minutes.
And then us in engineering said, you know, that this is actually not good for performance, so could you please make it so it doesn't actually keep accurate time?
It's going to keep this game from being AAA. You know that, don't you?
See, we try hard, very hard to make everything as realistic as possible, but there's sometimes constraints.
There's limits.
So here's an example of a space that we inserted for pacing reasons because we felt you'd been inside for quite a while in tighter, more closed-in areas, so getting you out into under the sky was a nice change of pace.
Originally, when you went out into the space, it was from the other side, too. But compositionally, it just looks a lot better entering where you do now.
This is actually one of my favorite combat spaces. I've probably played this space 30 times, and combat's different every time, and it's always satisfying.
There used to be a big air conditioning thing up on the wall there that you could shoot and knock onto a guy, but we couldn't convey it to the player well enough, so we just pulled it.
Dead.
There we go.
That hurt.
There's an example of a good rifle butt.
Yep.
The body impact effects was something that I really liked. There was a lot of sequences early on where you'd shoot a guy and throw him off a balcony and he would fall to the floor below. And Kevin hooked it up for the big bloody print impacts and just
Oh well, no, Brad
feels
Pendleton,
tasty.
lead engineer, actually made that work.
Brad did that?
I prototyped it, but he's the one that actually made it shippable. So
That's another cool thing too.
Makes me giddy.
The impact that looks like it recesses into the wall.
Yeah. Displacement.
The offset shader.
Yeah, the offset shader for a lot of the bricks, I really think, pulls them out and makes them feel real. And the offset shader for the impact marks definitely adds a ton.
This is another one of those spaces that originally you actually came into this from the far side of the room, swimming through an underground tunnel to enter a facility. And this is something that just through reworking the layouts and making the game work with the story, it changed around quite a bit.
It's a good example of our water technology, which allows for accurate reflections on the surface, and also you notice that the surface is being displaced as you move through it. So that was something that we spent a fair amount of time on, and it's used in a few places in the game.
One of the challenging things about trying to incorporate these scary moments is, when we play the game hundreds of times and see them over and over again, we start to lose perspective of whether they're still scary or not. So there's been so many moments where we've been tempted to pull, and a lot of them probably have been pulled because of that. So we purposely kind of held back on putting some of those moments in just so we didn't
get numb to them.
Yeah.
That was definitely a challenge for the first-person perspective, too. Craig talked about the cinematics and getting someone to get the story information. Those scary moments and different presentations of combat was a big challenge, just in trying to set up the composition so that the player was most likely to see the things that you wanted them to see. Went through a lot of iteration on different situations to accomplish that.
And in our playtesting, it's guaranteed that somebody's going to miss a big chunk of stuff.
I'm famous for always looking left. Anytime anything happens, I look left.
Some of the level designers actually compensate for that by putting things to the left.
Everything goes left.
His life signs are a little unusual, but he's definitely alive. He's got to be around there somewhere.
I'll keep looking.
It's actually a really good example of the water, the buoyancy, reflection.
Sploosh.
The ripples from the player.
Yep. Oh, this is cool dynamic lighting here, or fog.
Yeah, volumetric lighting.
Volumetric. Yeah, one of them words.
Your level designer, it's
Yeah,
okay.
I don't understand these things.
This is a moment that always gets a good response in the play tests.
Yeah.
Seeing the shadow of the guy. And
I always like to melee him here.
yeah.
Yeah, everybody always approaches this guy differently.
I like the shotgun through the window
Yeah.
in slow-mo.
I like the slide kick. Yeah.
Just to make sure.
The jump kick's actually a good one.
Yeah. I do the roundhouse there.
Double guns. Hmm?
You see that?
Whose idea was it to put a wrench on the calendar?
I remember.
That's probably Ken's idea.
I remember Andrew
I thought
working
it was
on
Andrew.
that.
Was it?
Yeah, I was actually watching him when he was doing it.
Well, the calendars used to be 1984 for a long time.
That's kind of cool, though.
Yeah.
Is that like a shout out to Van Halen?
It's
What was that for?
George Orwell.
Yeah.
Oh, Orwell. Okay. Of course, that's
I don't know.
that's the other thing I think of.
Right. Van Halen.
Van Halen first,
George
then,
Orwell.
then Orwell.
Yeah,
You know, got my priorities straight.
exactly. It's cool with the caustics lighting is pretty sweet.
Yeah, it's actually a video.
Shh.
We can tell our secrets.
No,
It's all good.
I'm just kidding. More volumetric lighting. A feature that I was just wanting so badly. Good catch.
This space actually went through quite a few revisions too.
Yep. Originally there was a pool down there, but combat and water again.
Yeah.
They don't mix.
Yeah.
Oh, yikes.
It's a good example of the slide kick.
Yep.
It's a good example of smoke kind of lingering around. It's like something happened here.
Command, what's the sit rep? Still holding for orders. Remain where you are. Understood.
This is definitely one of the biggest tactical challenges for the player up till this point in the game.
Yeah, I really like this combat space. It feels very, there's just so much going on, so much flanking, and it's so open-ended. A lot of people have said that it feels, it has a multiplayer feel to it.
Yeah.
I'm impressed that we pulled it off. You know, it's a big area and lots of bad guys.
A lot of guys.
Performance is pretty good.
This is one of those ones that went through a lot of lighting iterations. Leo De Bruin, one of our level designers, he went through and lit this most recently, and I think he did a great job
Yeah,
of
he did.
really popping out the contrast and yet making it feel like it has an ambient to it. It's really nice. Did a great job on it. And it runs faster, which is great. Little cat and mouse going on. It's definitely a level that demonstrates the how dynamic the AI are in responding to the player and how the player is moving through the space and what they're doing and the choices they're making.
Yeah, I would
It's
play
cool.
it completely differently if you played it again.
Catch.
Nice.
Oh, there goes a head.
Yep.
That's a shotgun.
Yeah, take the shotgun.
Yeah.
Shotgun, I think, is my favorite weapon.
I love using the shotgun and melee as a combo. Shotgun, melee, and slow-mo. As a combo is just great.
One of the things I'm happiest about is that instead of ragdoll physics, we have stuntman physics. The way the guys fly just feels much more like movie stuntmen.
Yeah. As we're about to witness. Yeah. Ooh, that's nice.
According to police, an explosion that leveled a dockside warehouse this evening was most
radio.
likely the result of an industrial accident. No injuries.
It's like one of the first props that was made, wasn't it, that radio?
Yeah.
I like this this puzzle here where you turn on the water. It's actually a good example of a sound feature that Terry Jones, our audio engineer, implemented that is allows you to string a sound along kind of a, instead of being around a radius, it's actually following the pipe. So as you move down the pipe, you can hear the water the whole time, but you don't hear it in here.
Yeah, still got the positional.
Yeah,
which is cool.
Which is, you know, very realistic.
Oops.
It's a tough one because, you know, I'd like having some of those puzzle elements, but there's a lot of gamers that get frustrated, so we end up pulling back on them quite a bit.
This is a good combat space as well. This is one of my favorites. There's a lot of high variation, guys above you.
He's retreating.
Nice.
This area was actually one of the first combat prototype areas we built.
Nasty.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, this is the area where we did the first demo that got us into E3 2004. And we actually used it in the E3 demo 2005, which is pretty funny. Still one of my favorite combat spaces in the game.
Yeah, first screenshot.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right here.
That's a good story.
Infamous, yeah. Bullets taste like chicken.
Yeah, we our first screenshot that we thought only the press was ever going to see was in this area, and we had a caption, bullets taste like chicken.
Hope you're hungry.
Hope you're hungry.
Yeah.
Which is
a total joke, but
yeah, we didn't think that it would ever get out, but of course,
It did.
Foolish.
Yeah.
it happens.
it was taken seriously, so.
Yeah,
But they really do taste like chicken.
they do.
That's my understanding. There's our pachinko boy. Yeah, that's got
It's
hurt.
required.
Yeah, you gotta have the pachinko machine. It's too quiet. Don't trust it.
I think this person's played this before.
Yeah.
Dynamic lighting, another example.
He doesn't. Some trepidation.
He's just working his way up to it.
What's he worried about?
So one of our goals in the game is each time we introduce a new element, a new character, a new enemy, we wanted to try and make it dramatic, memorable. So you'll see an illustration of that with the heavy armor.
The situation right here really just highlights the whole core concept behind the game. Just full-on action movie action.
Except for that part. Bank shots.
It's kind of where it all comes together. You got the slow-mo, you got the effects, you got the combat. Physics.
Smoke.
Carnage.
Yeah.
And lots of blood.
And that's pretty much all we have. I don't have any idea what the hell I'm supposed to say.
Oh, man.
That's why we're in the game development business, so we don't have to be on camera.
Exactly.
I think this is the first introduction to those loose gas pipes that you can blow up and use against the enemy.
So he just got nailed.
Nailed to the wall. That's what you get.
Just in case.
Those are warning shots.
Yeah.
All right, that's getting a little
gratuitous there.
Yeah.
Save your nails.
This area always reminds me of the the process that we use to build a lot of these spaces, but it's just to start off with a completely simplistic environment, totally gray materials on the walls, just to get the feel of the space and of how the game mechanics would work within it, and then to go back and detail it up.
Using the grid texture, it also made it really easy to just look at something and say, pull it back a meter, 50 centimeters.
I think that was it was a great thing to work that way. You didn't get caught up in the details. You were able to just concentrate on the composition and what the play was going to be.
This used to be a much longer cinematic, but I just distilled it down to this little snippet of the interrogation.
Kind of an ongoing theme throughout the game, trying to kind of leave more to the player's imagination than spell it out for them.
There's a good example of a little scene that was originally somewhere else entirely, but
I think that one actually moved around twice.
Yeah.
It was originally blocked in one space, got moved into another one, and then finally pulled into here.
All right.
That's horrible.
That's horrible.
How could guys this boring make something this cool?